everyone, and welcome to the 30 Days Summit, where Russell Brunson has brought together a collection of his top 2 Comma Club and 8-figure award winners to share with you how they would literally survive and begin to rebuild their business in just 30 days if they lost it all. My name is Bailey Richard, and right now I'm delighted to be speaking with Natalie Hodson. Natalie Hodson is a mom of 2 who is best known for her ability to connect with women and their real-life situations. Natalie's wildly popular blog gets nearly 500,000 monthly unique visitors, where she shares stories and tips for balancing family, fitness, and a healthy lifestyle. Her followers most often describe Natalie as real, genuine, authentic, and relatable. She is an ISSA certified personal trainer, GGS pre- and postnatal certified trainer, content writer, and contributor for sites and publications including bodybuilding.com, Oxygen Magazine, Train for Her Magazine, Strong Fitness Magazine, and more. Natalie also is the co-author of the Abs, Core, and Pelvic Floor program that has helped over 35,000 women improve their core and pelvic floor dysfunction after pregnancy. This program put Natalie into the 2 Comma Club after just 4 months after the release of the ebook. So Natalie, welcome to the summit.
Thank you. That was a great intro. Thank you so much, Bailey.
Well, it's an absolute pleasure to have you, Natalie. You have such an impressive resume, and I'm really excited to learn more about your 30-day plan in this interview. So with that, let's just dive straight into week number 1. What I really see going on are 3 major things. First of all, deciding what your audience actually wants to learn about, and you can judge that from your past content, as we'll be discussing in just a minute. Writing your ebook, and then reaching out to your Dream 100. So I want to talk about each one of these things in order. So we've heard on this summit from so many of the different interviewees how important it is to figure out what your audience actually wants to learn about and then creating products about that. And there's so many different ways that the other summit interviewees have proposed to do that, from ask campaigns to diving into Facebook groups. And while you definitely support those in your plan as well, you also talk about Google Analytics. So I'd love to hear more about what your strategy is using Google Analytics to figure out what you should be sharing with your audience.
Definitely. So my angle is a little unique because I was a blogger before this, and so I had some data that I could draw upon. But even if you already don't have data to begin with, you could always just put some posts out there and see which one garners the most traffic. But for me, basically, and without going into too much of my story, I went through a divorce, and after my divorce, I was like, okay, I don't have alimony or child support. My back is against the wall. Like, I have to figure this out. And so what I did is I went to my Google Analytics and I said, well, what is my audience already what are people already telling me they're interested in? Because I can sit here and guess all day long, but let's just use the actual data. It's just like Russell says, people can come to him and say, what do I need to change on my funnel? And he'll say, I don't know, let's test it. It's very similar, like I'm just following the numbers. And so what I did is I looked at my Google Analytics, and I was surprised that my number 1 and my number 2 blog posts I didn't even write them, actually. They were guest blog posts, and they were on this weird thing called diastasis recti, which is the separation of your ab muscles after pregnancy. And I thought, man, that we're onto something here. There's people that are coming to me for information, and I don't have anything to sell them. And so that's when I ended up partnering with a doctor, and we wrote that program, Abs, Core, Pelvic Floor. And then the 3rd most popular blog post was 11 healthy and inexpensive crockpot meals. And I thought, okay, well, I can make an offer around that. And so I created a crockpot ebook, which was actually really fun to make. I just took all my best recipes, and every night we had like 20 dinners. And so I brought all the neighbors from the neighborhood, and I just said, load up, you guys, it's a big potluck. But I made that ebook, and interesting enough, it wasn't as successful as a standalone product. It sells okay, but it didn't it wasn't a 2 Comma Club book. But what it's proven to be incredibly successful as is an order bump. So now we put that $17 ebook as an order bump, and depending on which offer we put it with, we have anywhere from a 30 to a 40% take rate on that order bump. So we're increasing, our average cart value substantially because I knew that people were interested in that.
Okay, fantastic. So what I'm hearing from you is ebooks and a lot of them. So now that we've figured out using Google Analytics what it is that our audience actually wants to learn more about, we need to figure out what product we're going to create and sell to them. And as I mentioned, you're a big proponent of ebooks. So I was wondering if you could share with our audience specifically why ebooks, but then also what would you say to somebody who really thinks that ebooks might not be for them? Maybe thinking that it's too difficult for them to write a book, or maybe the margins are a little bit too low. What would you say to somebody who is not quite sold on ebooks yet?
Yeah, definitely. So the first thing I'll say is that's what worked for me. But if you absolutely hate writing, you can use another form. Like you could do a course where you're filming videos. I just use ebooks in this example because that's what happened to work for me. So I think a lot of times people think of ebooks and they think, oh, that's what people give for free in their crappy little pamphlets on the internet, And I didn't even really know what an ebook was. I just saw that some of my competitors were doing that. And so I thought, well, I could do that too. And the reason I like ebooks is because they're really quick to put together and it's really low overhead. So I know a lot of times people are afraid of putting so much time and energy into their content. And then, because sometimes you put stuff out and it doesn't work, right? I've written ebooks that haven't been as successful. And so the reason I like an ebook is because it's quick to put together and it's inexpensive. Your total cost from start to finish to write an ebook should be less than $500. And that the biggest expense is going to be just the design piece of it, getting somebody to design it. And so the reason I really like ebooks is because, and if you use like the format that I wrote in there, at first it's like, oh my gosh, I have to write a book. I don't even know where to start. But what I do is I start with just a bullet point of like every single topic I want to talk about. And then I go through and I fill out the parts that feel easiest to me to write about. I start with that, right? So like the first thing I filled out was my bio because I'm like, okay, I can write about that. The second part I filled out was like, just my story of how I gained weight, how I gained 70 pounds during my pregnancy, because I felt like, okay, I've told that before. That's fairly easy. And then what I did is I just kind of worked backwards and I saved the hardest parts for last. And then in my case, and I mentioned that you can do this too, I partnered with a doctor and I'm grateful that I did that. At the beginning, I gave up quite a bit of we had a rev share arrangement or a profit share arrangement. And in hindsight, like I didn't know the program was going to take off the way that it did, but I'm really grateful to that doctor because I could not have written the book without her, in my opinion, because she just had the credentials that I didn't have. And so I think sometimes that holds a lot of people back. I hear that from people I work with a lot. Well, I don't have the certification, or I'm not an expert in this area. And the thing is, I think you just have to have a compelling, everything that Russell teaches in Expert Secrets, but if you really are insecure about your credentials, see if you can partner with somebody who is credentialed in those areas.
Absolutely. I love that. If we have our own internal mindset issues that we need to work with, and credibility is one of those, then we can help ourselves overcome that by partnering with others. So that's really great.
Let me add one more thing that I like ebooks too, is because it's really easy for somebody else to promote it. And so like, for example, because and we'll go into this, I'm sure in a second, a lot of what my strategy is using the Dream 100, using people who have big lists. Well, if they have to spend a lot of time and energy into researching your course and understanding everything that it offers and sending out a lot of emails, the chances of them agreeing to it is slower. But if you have a simple ebook and you know that it will help their audience, it feels easier a lot of times for an influencer to promote your ebook as opposed to like a big long course.
Absolutely. Well, that was the next thing I wanted to talk to you about was your Dream 100. We've heard other summit speakers on this event already speaking about what the Dream 100 is, but I would love to hear from you specifically what you're looking for in your Dream 100 whenever you're putting that list together. And then also, what are some of your goals in reaching out to these individuals and what you're hoping to accomplish by partnering with them?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So, what I do first is I like to handwrite things. So I actually just handwrite it out and I handwrite the people that I genuinely follow. So I think it's easier to start with people like that because, it's interesting now because I'm a couple years down the road now, and now people reach out to me, right? That they want access to my audience. And it's really interesting because you can sniff out the people who are just copying and pasting an email to every single person. But you really can sense, like, if somebody's genuinely following you and they ask questions and they say things like, hey, I saw you were picking huckleberries with your kids last weekend at the lake, or, it's like, wow, this person really follows me and I'll give them a shot, or I'll listen to what they have to say. And so that's why I think it's the easiest to start with people who you actually follow in real life, because it's just easier. Because you follow them, the kind of questions to ask them. And so, and then obviously people who have bigger audiences can introduce you to more people, but even somebody who has like not a massive audience, but a kind of big audience, it's really interesting. Like, don't discount those people, because even if their audiences are smaller, they can have a lot more engagement than somebody with a massive audience. And so, that's where I would start, is people who you genuinely follow. And then the one thing that I will say, and people might have heard me tell the story before, I think it's in the masterclass, the Secrets Masterclass, but when I first started, and I didn't know the word Dream 100, I just thought, well, I'm just going to reach out. I'm going to reach out to as many people as I can. And I literally reached out to like 100 people, and I didn't hear back from pretty much all of them, or I just got to know. And so you just have to remember that it's not personal if somebody doesn't respond. And I kind of understand now, being on the other side too, sometimes it might just be a timing issue. They might have just reached out to you at a time when you were if I was in the middle of this interview and somebody reached out to me, I might miss the message, right? So don't take it personally. Don't feel like you're personally getting rejected. And then what ended up my big thing that took off was it gained me 100,000 organic followers. And Heidi Powell was just somebody in the fitness industry. She's the mom that I followed. And I knew, because I'd been following her online, that she was doing this Perfectly Imperfect campaign. And I started thinking, my message is just like that. I could really help her. And I didn't know her from Adam. She didn't know me, and so I went to her website. There was no contact button. So I was like, darn, this sucks. I really want to work on this. So I just guessed. So I guess every possible variety I could think of, Heidi at HeidiPowell.net, contact at HeidiPowell.HP, at HeidiPowell, all these things, right? And all of them came back bounced, undeliverable. And then, but one of them worked. And then her assistant ended up responding, and she said, hey, Heidi's actually heard of you. We'd love to have you contribute. So I filmed this video. It went viral. It went totally viral. It had millions and millions of views organically, and added a whole bunch of organic followers. So, it's one thing like that can really, really take off. And you just don't know which one it's going to be.
Absolutely. As someone who does virtual summits a lot, I'm constantly reaching out to people to be guest speakers on my event, and I'm teaching my students to do that as well. And one of the things that I'm constantly telling them is that it's a bit of a numbers game, and that if you want to have 20 people on your summit, you may very well end up reaching out to 100 or more.
Oh, 100%. And the other thing that I'll say too is that if there's somebody that you really want to get in contact with, I know Dana does gifts and and that's awesome. But don't underestimate the value of just engaging with them online. Honestly, even though I have a big following now, the people who comment on every single post or who respond to my Insta stories regularly, I recognize their names, And so don't think just because they have 1 million followers, they're not going to know I'm just Joe Schmo. That's not really true, because you'd be surprised that I don't know, you recognize certain names that come up again and again and again. So don't discount that for sure.
Absolutely. Priming that relationship online with someone before you actually participate in the cold outreach can be a valuable asset.
Definitely. Yeah, for sure.
Okay, great. So let's move on in your 30-day plan and start talking about week 3, where you are really getting deep into preparation of pre-launch activities, including creating content for influencers and for your own social platforms, even sharing free copies of your ebook and setting up a pre-launch Facebook ads campaign. Could you share with us specifically what some of the activities are that are going on this week, and perhaps highlight some of the most important ones?
Yeah. So the one thing that I underestimated when I launched my first ebook is how stressful a launch can be. And it pretty much always is. Even if you think you're as prepared as possible, something inevitably always goes wrong. So just go into it with the mindset that things are going to go wrong, and that's okay. And it doesn't mean that it's a complete cluster, that's just part of the process, right? Things are just going to go wrong, and you just have to deal with it and work through it. So, but now that we've done multiple launches, the one thing that I can say is that being as prepared as possible ahead of time takes a lot of the pressure and noise off your shoulders. So if you can, and Russell gives really good examples of how to do this in .comSecrets, but if you can have really good soap opera sequences, and if you can have really good pre-launch email sequences, that'll help you dramatically. And what you want to do is have email swipes, basically examples of really good emails that you can give to your influencers. So then all they have to do is tweak it a little bit, and then they can send that to their audience. So I think just literally on your whiteboard, just draw it out and say, okay, 1 day before the launch, we need to do this. 2 days before the launch, we need to do this. 3 days before the launch. And then once you have that wireframe, then you can fill in the details of like, okay, we need to get this person their copy, this person their copy, and all that.
Okay, fantastic. Well, all of these week 3 activities are really pushing us into week 4, where we are still technically in the pre-launch phase, because in your 30-day plan, you do say that day 30 is launch day. But all of these activities are really starting to pick up steam as we move closer to that final day of the plan. So I'd love to hear from you what some of the activities are that are happening now during week 4. And then also on the tail end of this question, if you wouldn't mind sharing with us what is officially happening during launch day and beyond as well.
Yes. So what you want to do is, obviously like make sure that all your ducks are in a row. So you want to do test purchases. You want to make sure that your email sequences are set up, like all the technical stuff. And if you're not good at it, have somebody who can help you, even if that means you need to barter to like trade with your skill set with somebody who has that skill set. And then what I do, what's always worked really, really well for me is I take Russell's perfect webinar script and then I condense it into about a 30-minute version. And I do that as a Facebook Live. And that has always worked really well for me. Now, I'm comfortable being on camera. So if you hate being on camera, don't do that, right? I'm just saying what has worked for me. Now, writing out a webinar script isn't easy. I mean, it takes a lot of time to really think through your stories and write it out. So make sure you have that prepared ahead of time, because if you think you can just wing it, you won't be able to. During this last week, you want to really make sure that you're touching base with anybody who's going to promote your program for you, and make sure like that it's as easy for them as possible. And that, if they have any questions, you answer any questions that they have, just be like available to them all the time. And then on actual launch day, that's the day. I mean, all the work that you've put in so far should have paid off. And so that's when you put out your program, you send your emails, you do your Facebook Lives, you even do Facebook Lives on the affiliates pages if they're comfortable with it. You just hustle your little butt off. And then at the end of the day, evaluate and just know that we didn't make $1 million on day 1, right? I don't even think we actually sold a ton on day 1. We sold a decent amount, but then what we did is we said, okay, what worked? What did we feel like got a good response from our audience? And let's do more of that. And so then you just then you plan out your next 30 days. And you're like, okay, how can we adjust? How can we start running some traffic? How can we get more affiliate? You just continue the process. And then also just take a moment to congratulate yourself. Doing all that in 30 days or 6 or however many days it took you, that is a huge accomplishment. And regardless of the number of sales you're getting, it's a big deal. And you can impact people and make a difference and really help a lot of people. So also give yourself permission to celebrate too.
Fantastic advice, Natalie, and we really appreciate you being on the summit and sharing all of this incredible value. We are reaching the end of our time for this first interview, but I wanted to make sure I gave you one last chance to share anything with our listening audience at home about your 30-day plan or about business in general.
Well, I think the main thing to remember is that all of us feel afraid when we're starting something. Even now, I've launched so many programs and courses and ebooks, and I still feel afraid every single time. And I've started to learn that, 1, that's part of the process. 2, I think fear is just it's like fear is telling you that you're doing something right, that you're on the right path. And then 3 is that even if things don't go the way you want it to, just because you failed doesn't mean you're a failure, right? And that's the biggest lesson I've learned through all these years doing this is that there's I put way more out that didn't work than I've put out that did. But I feel like, as cliche as it sounds, I've learned more from the failures than I did from the successes. And so surround yourself with really strong mentors online, people that level you up or that you look up to. Even if you don't have those kind of people in real life, find them online. And just know that you being here right now, watching these videos, reading these books, sets you a part of the pack already. And you're doing a great job.
Absolutely. Natalie, thank you so much for sharing all of the incredible value that you have on today's interview. We really appreciate it. For those of you watching at home who are ready to embark on your own 30-day path to success, I have something incredible to share with you. It's called the One Funnel Away Challenge. And you can go ahead and learn more by clicking the button on this page and upgrading so you can have an opportunity to work directly with a ClickFunnels 2 Club coach in order to craft your own personalized and customized 30-day plan to success and getting your next award-winning funnel launched. But that's not all you'll be receiving when you upgrade. You are also going to be getting some amazing bonuses, including a physical copy of the 30-Day Summit book, where we've put together all of the written 30-day plans from all of the speakers on this summit. You're going to be getting unlimited access to the interview that you just saw with Natalie, and of course, all of the other summit speakers on this event. And my favorite part, a second interview that I have recorded with every single summit speaker, where they're taking me behind the scenes and showing me via screen share how it is that they've actually set up their own 2 Club funnels. Truly, the value is absolutely out of this world, and I don't want you to miss out on that. So make sure that you click the button on this page to learn more about the One Funnel Away Challenge and upgrade today. One more time, Natalie, thank you so much for being a part of the summit. We really appreciate it.
Thanks, Bailey.